Balzo the Entertainer. Once a clown to laugh and play, now is a husk of his dark desires. Meet Balzo. Balzo is a happy person who just wanted to make people laugh and cheer, especially if it was because he himself made them enjoy themselves. He was a natural performer, an extrovert who loved being the center of attention. Balzo was the class clown who was so funny his teachers didn't mind the interruptions to their lessons. He was that charming. Making people laugh was his bread and butter. From a young age, he knew what he wanted to do with his life. He wanted to make people laugh. So, Balzo became a clown. Now, being a clown isn't easy. You have to put up with a lot. People hating your show, kids being scared of you, or in some cases, people even attacking you. Because for some reason, clowns seem to be open game for every jerk and butthead around. And Balzo was one of the best clowns, so he drew the worst of the worst. A pair of trust fund brothers who never had to work for a second of their lives. After coming across one of Balzo's shows, they decided to hire him for one of their fraternity parties. It was something Balzo had done before, so he wasn't worried about performing for an older audience. What he wasn't prepared for was just how malicious the brothers were. He arrived at the frat and performed like usual, putting on a funny show for the college-aged men and women. Then the brothers started to heckle him. Again, this is something he was used to, so Balzo just worked with it. Everyone else was thoroughly enjoying the show, so he did what he did best. He made people laugh and have a good time. Any good performer can work a heckler into his show, and Balzo was more than just a good performer. He was a professional. He ended up making the brothers look foolish for trying to embarrass a clown, especially one willing to pie himself and shove whipped cream down his pants. Now, the brothers were not used to being the butt of a joke. Any joke. People were usually afraid of making them upset. The combination of their influential family and their willingness to quickly escalate a situation into violence made people wary of them. So, ignoring the uneasy looks they were exchanging with each other, Balzo kept up his mockery of them. He even began pantomiming what they were doing and saying as they tried to humiliate him. That really upset them, and they demanded that he stop mocking them. Balzo just repeated what they said with a squeak. They got in his face and made the demand again, with more curse words thrown in. Balzo's response was to spray the older brother in the face with his spritzer. The older brother, surprised by the cold water in his face, swung at Balzo. The younger one was quick to jump in, and before the audience they viciously attacked the clown. It took a moment for those in the audience to pull the brothers off. But the damage was done. Balzo had fallen at a bad angle during the beating and sustained a serious injury to his spine. He lost all sensation in his legs. An ambulance was called, as were the police. Balzo was sent to the hospital and the brothers to the police station, but they called ahead and their lawyers were the ones to meet them there. While Balzo was in an MRI getting his body scanned, the boys' very expensive family lawyers were making deals to get them out of the trouble they had gotten themselves in. In the end, Balzo's spinal injury took away the use of his legs. The boys got probation and an anger management course. Their family offered to pay Balzo a very nice settlement, including his very expensive hospital bills, and a waiver to prevent him from prosecuting the boys further. Balzo would live, and potentially live well off from the settlement, but his days as an entertainer were over. He wouldn't be able to work as a clown while stuck in a wheelchair. A professional clown's body is his greatest tool of expression. Without the ability to contort, to caper, to exaggerate every gesture, he couldn't perform. What he loved was now out of his reach. Balzo was devastated. He felt that his life was ruined, destroyed by two entitled little pricks who weren't even punished for their horrible antics. But he had no choice, as the settlement was the only way to pay his medical bills, and that was dependent on waiving his right to sue. And even if he did try to pursue them legally, he couldn't afford the lawsuit to begin with, and would probably lose anyway. The money was nothing to them, but they had taken everything from him. It wasn't fair, it wasn't right, and there was nothing he could do about it. So, in order to live, Balzo signed his pride away. but the feelings remained. That dark, bitter anger. It fueled him through physical therapy. It fueled him on the way home from the hospital. And when he was home, looking at all the tools and props he used as a clown, all he could do was sob helplessly. Weeks passed and that anger didn't fade. It only increased inside the broken man, especially after receiving a sorry note from the brothers. It was petty and empty and looked as though their father had made them write it. That anger turned into a dark hatred, and it was like something suddenly possessed Balzo. He picked up his toolbox, which he used for making his props as a clown, and he began creating. A large log, carved, whittled, and worked on for months. Balzo often went days without eating, just hunched over his workbench, working on his fevered masterpiece. Tools and paint and rage went into his latest creation. When he was done, Balzo was looking at a carved wooden dummy, a simple sphere for a head and a body, long noodle-like arms that waved in the air by themselves. Topping it off was a simple, painted clown face, modelled after his own clown persona. Balzo waited, and then, slowly, the dummy started to move by itself. The following week, the brothers received a large package at their frat. They had already forgotten the incident with the clown whose life they had ruined. It wasn't the first time they'd been bailed out of trouble, and it wasn't as though their actions had any real consequences for them. It was just another dirt pile they'd kicked over. Who cares if some bugs died? They opened the large box and pulled away the packaging. Inside was a dummy dressed like a clown. Simple features, not even a carved head, but a painted face. Attached to it was an unsigned note. For your entertainment. They were confused at this present, and, seeing such a simple toy, they tossed it in a corner and forgot about it. When the other frat members and house guests saw what it was, they were confused as well. They did remember the man who got hurt, but they didn't want to remind the brothers and make them angry, especially after they'd gotten away with crippling someone. That night, while everyone slept and no one was watching, the doll twitched. It rose from the corner it had been thrown to and made its way to the top floor, the room the brothers reserved for themselves, forcing everybody else to double up. The doll went to their room and tried the door. It was locked, so the doll stretched out one of its thin arms and something popped out. It was a bump key. With a precise tap and a twist, the lock popped open in an instant, letting it into the room. The brothers didn't help themselves at all. Having taken some designer drugs, they were dead to the world. The Balzo closed the door behind it. As it did so, both arms elongated and many different tools emerged. No one heard the sounds that followed, as the brothers had spared no expense in soundproofing their floor. They'd done so after complaints about noise had reached the point where the college would have to do something. Ironically, the treatment had been put in place to stop the sound of screaming and begging for help. It served its purpose well, and gave Balzo's dummy all the time it needed to work. The brothers weren't discovered until 2 days later. After missing more classes than usual, one of their friends came to check on them. Walking into the unlocked room, emergency services were immediately called. Both brothers had been restrained. Their arms had been stitched to their sides and their legs were sewn together as well. All over their bodies, jokes, doodles and insults were tattooed onto their skin. Their faces were not spared. They were permanently marked with the same clown makeup that Balzo wore. Their mouths had been stitched closed. The two were immediately rushed to the hospital. The police interviewed them in the recovery ward when they regained consciousness after surgery. They both claimed it was Balzo who attacked them. The makeup design did match that of the clown, and the police attended Balzo's home. They were just in time to save the man's life. A shelf had fallen on the crippled man, trapping him in a way he couldn't escape. He had been there for several days and was suffering from severe dehydration. Having been found in this situation, Balzo was cleared of any wrongdoing. Testing while in hospital revealed the cocktail of drugs the brothers had in their systems at the time of the attack, leading police to conclude that they had somehow done this to themselves in the course of their bender. Their parents, having grown sick of the shame the boys' antics brought upon their proud family, cut them off. The boys were forced to take leave from school while they went through reconstructive surgery, and then cosmetic surgery. In between, they attended rehab in order to get their trust funds back. Balzo became a children's book writer, creating a series of books that became a popular cartoon and earned him wealth and fame. As for his dummy, it was seen again, but that is a different report.